Hi, and welcome to the first ever episode of the Waistline Podcast. I am your host, Syatt, and this is the conclusion of me sounding professional. I have recorded this intro or the start of this podcast probably 74 times. And I just, something as a listener, what you're going to have to get used to is that I will change topics a lot. I will go back and forth, but I have a goal. And we're gonna barrel through it because this is who I am. I'm an overthinker. I worry. It's weird as someone who's big. It's weird to say that you're a perfectionist because obviously, very obviously, I'm not. But I struggle with if something isn't going well or the way I imagine it. I too quickly abandon it. And that is one of the many things that I am looking to improve upon with this podcast. And I am opening up way too quickly to you guys. I feel like I already know you and I love you even before you know me. And that is my personality 100%. So I already like you more than you like me, but we'll get there as a group, and hopefully in a few weeks you'll like me maybe half as much as I like you. But welcome to the Waistline Podcast. I am absolutely ripping off Loveline, and not the new one with Kanye's ex. I'm talking about like the Dr. Drew with I'm a Mike Catherwood co-host guy. Shout out to Mike. He's actually a very good friend and a great guy who has his own podcast. Multiple. One's called Mikey Likes You, and one is I think Good News with Kevin and Mike. I did that without even I have notes, but those aren't in my notes, just off the top of my head. I grew up listening to that show on a desktop computer. I was in probably high school, and it was streaming live on the internet, no video, just audio. And if you aren't familiar with that program, it was a call-in radio show where Dr. Drew and Mike, or earlier Adam Carolla, and some guests and some call-ins, they talk about some relationship questions. They talk about medical issues, life issues, and I loved it. I loved it. And I am ripping them off, and we're going to talk about weight-related issues on this show, and maybe addiction. When at the launch, I'm focusing mostly on weight-related issues because that's what I have issues with. However, in discussing this with a lot of people, I think that we could eventually branch out into all types of addiction, not just food or eating addictions. But for right now, what I'm gonna focus on is the weight. And if we branch out into that, or if you have that issue as on top of eating, I would love to talk about it. I have no expert. The only expertise I have is in eating. If you're listening to this podcast and you want to gain weight, I'm your guy. I could very quickly, we could put on the pounds. Very, very quickly we could put on the pounds. And that's not the goal, obviously. What is the goal of this podcast, Lee? Well, I'm glad you asked, Lee. Thank you for asking. I hate the term safe space. I think that gets overused in this time, and it's but the unfortunate thing is that it's exactly what I'm trying to create. It's because I know firsthand. Someone asked me. I was out the other night. I used to do comedy, but now with the pandemic, I haven't really done it in over a year. But I was out at the first show that I've been to in a year, and this other comic who had lost weight was asking me when I started putting on excess weight, is the way he put it, and I said at birth. And it's just true. I'm sorry, Mom. I told my mom about the idea for this podcast, and I feel like she thought I was like it was a knock on her parenting. And she's like, "Oh, you weren't big as a kid," and I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but I was always the chubby kid, and I always felt like the big kid, but I didn't start really putting on like bad weight until I moved to Los Angeles right after college. I always felt big, and I always felt like it was too much, but now looking back, I was like, wow, I was doing okay. But this podcast is, and we're gonna figure out a different name instead of Safe Space, because it's how when people hear the word safe space, a lot of people get turned off, and that's not what I want. What I mean by safe space when I say that is I know there's gonna be no judging on here or on any of the social media handles. There's no judging, no name calling, just no negativity. Maybe we'll call it a positive space. That's what I'm looking for. That's a good idea. Maybe we'll call it a positivity space. We'll figure it out. This is the first episode. I don't need to write anything in stone right now. But it's going to be a positive space to really shine a light on losing weight and or being big and the struggles that come along with it. And I want to highlight people who have already lost a lot of weight, are going through the process of losing weight, or maybe, you know what, maybe you're listening to this and I was like that for probably the majority of my life, where it's not that I didn't care about being big, because I always did. I would always have loved to be. I would have loved to be skinny. And there's a big body positivity movement, and I'm not telling anyone how to feel. If you're happy, I really genuinely hope you're happy with who you are as a person, and even if you want to lose some weight, like everyone's goal is different. I'm not telling anyone that they need to be shredded or ripped or within the right BMI scale, because I don't want to sound negative, but I don't expect myself to get into the BMI correct scale. However, I'm currently on a weight loss journey, as I say. I'm down just a little bit over 50 pounds, and I have a lot more to go. I have at least 100 more to go, but I don't want anyone to feel left out, or feel like this podcast is going to shame you if you are as big as me, bigger than me, and if it works for your lifestyle, or maybe if you want to lose 20 pounds, but you don't necessarily want to completely change your life, that's completely fine. I'm going to be here for you no matter your size, and I'm not going to judge you or tell you to lose weight. That's not my style, because frankly, and it's a double-edged sword, because I've been very lucky that I've had family and friends who have done the sit down where, listen, Lee, we're concerned about you, and we think you need to lose weight. And it's I'm not proud of this, but at some points I wasn't ready for that talk. I'd get a little bit I want to use the word childish, but that sounds like I'm judging it. It's just, for me, I'm not proud of the way I responded to it, and I'd be like, well, no one can tell me what to do, so I'm gonna not work out or eat whatever I want because I'm an adult and I can do what I want. And for me, I'm not happy that that's how I decided to address it. But the truth is, and I've been lucky in my life to not be addicted to anything other than food. But this is ultimately going to be your decision, or your friend. If you're listening as a skinny person, or not a big person, even if you're not super skinny, if you have someone in your life who you care about and you love, and this is definitely going to be an episode, now that I think about it, of how to address that with the person you care about. Because it's ultimately their decision. No amount of you caring about them or loving them or having the best intention or heart is going to make them lose weight. it's a very personal thing. No matter how long you've been big, I'm one of the people who's been big my whole life. So there's a lot of mental and scars that go back to my childhood with that. Some people get big later in life, but it's an emotional thing. And I'm just gonna speak personally. When I was talking about body positivity earlier, see, I told you I go ping ping ping. A lot of the negativity around body positivity, to me, comes from the fact of people think like, oh, they're telling other people to be big, or it's unhealthy that they're that weight, and they should change. And it's, at least from my point of view, and if you're different, I would love to hear from you. But from my point of view, I have always known that I was big. It's even back to very early on, because I mean, kids can be cruel, but early on in school, it's just it's not something I was unaware of. And even at my childish phase, as I said earlier, I wanted to be skinny. It's not like I chose to be big. It's just I wasn't in the right place or willing to make a change. So it's not. When I say body positivity, I just want people to be happy with themselves, and I think that mental aspect could lead people, if they want to lose weight. And frankly, the only reason I hope you lose weight is for health. I've had a few people, like I said in the trailer, if you listen to that, on a previous podcast that I worked on, I got to become friendly with a comedian named Ralphie May, who, as a bigger kid growing up, even I don't know if my weight played a role in it, but maybe it did. I saw him. I think it was I'm pretty sure it was either the first or the second season. I think it was the first of Last Comic Standing, and he was hysterical his whole life. But later in life, I did get to meet him and become friendly with him. And he unfortunately passed away a couple years ago. And I think he was 45 years old. And now that I'm right now, I'm 32. I'm recording this in March of 2021. I'm going to be 20. I'm 20. I'm going to be 33. So I forget. I don't know if I said 22 or 32. Right now I'm 32. And I'm going to be 33 in July. And I'm not as big as Ralphie was, but people die at my age. You don't have to be that big to die this early. And even in my 20s, 40 just seems so far away. But just having gone through my 20s, it shocked me how quickly, now that I'm in my 30s. And I know that the 40s, it's going to fly. It's just going to fly. Everyone says that. Everyone says time flies. So I don't want to only have 12 years left. I want to have, I'm not married. I don't have kids, and I would like that for my life. And I want to be around I haven't achieved everything I want to achieve. And I don't want to only have 12 years left. So, and I don't want any of you to die before you're supposed to. And I this isn't going to be a podcast about religion. I personally, I was raised Jewish, just to tell you, but Reform, very relaxed form of it, and now I don't really, I shouldn't even be telling. I don't know why I'm telling you all this, but just I want you to know where I'm coming from. I personally don't have a religious background or lifestyle right now, so it's not about that. But obviously you pass when you're supposed to pass, and it's going to be sad no matter what age you are. But if losing weight can prolong your life and still maintain a happiness, because what I'm going to talk, this episode is an introduction, but we're going to talk about my my background. And then in the next episode, we're going to talk about the weight loss journey that I'm on right now. But just a little bit of a teaser for that, I guess. I am a big believer, because unfortunately I had an aunt who passed away a few years ago, who was probably the healthiest person I'd ever met. Was, I think, either a vegetarian or ate mostly vegetables, ate super healthy, worked out, and unfortunately, I think it was her early 50s or late 40s, and she passed away because of cancer. I don't say that to bum you out, but what I do think, a lot of times when people are talking to me about losing weight, they recommend lifestyles that aren't sustainable, and that I do get a large part of, not a part of, but I do get a large amount of happiness from eating. Eating is something that I enjoy a lot, and it's not that life wouldn't be worth living, but I don't want to restrict myself in a way that is going to make my life less happy. So what I'm doing right now, just to give you a quick little teaser for next week, is I'm doing a form of intermittent fasting called Omad, which stands for 1 meal a day. And honestly, the real reason why I'm doing it is so that I can still eat a fairly normal meal. I eat once a day, and to be honest, I don't really feel like I'm restricting myself. I am a little bit, and we'll get into that in a minute, about how I used to eat. But for the most part, like on all the other diets that I've been on, I always felt hungry. And this, at least for me, I've been on it for about 3.5 months, and it's working for me right now. This might not work for you. So do whatever works for you. But food is always going to be a big part of my life, and what I like to say is, when people ask me how I've lost weight this time, is I like to say I stopped eating like a jerk. And trust me, I'll talk about that in a minute, of how I was eating, and I was pretty much just eating like a jerk. So I've pretty much just started eating a little, just focusing on and actually realizing what I'm eating, and it's been working for me. I've lost, like I said, just over 51 pounds, and it's going about as well as I could hope. Obviously, I wish I was down 100 already and be done with it, but I've done that before, and it hasn't worked out. I do want to give you a quick, I guess, shout out for all of the places and all the things we're going to do on here. So if you're interested, if you do like the podcast, I do want to build a community. I think it's very important as someone who's losing weight, that we have other people to lean on, and not because we're big and it's hard to walk, but because there's going to be moments where you want to quit, where I want to quit, where the scale doesn't go down, or maybe it even goes up, or maybe you're just sick of eating salads, or whatever it is, and in those moments, if you're by yourself, it's a very easy, at least for me, to give up on it. And I've done it a million times. I've started a million diets on Monday and messed up on Tuesday and restarted the next Monday. It's I've been there too many times to count. And so what I've done is I've created already a Waistline YouTube page, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. So on Instagram, it's at Waistline Podcast. And when you go there, I've already, in the past week or so, 2 weeks, I've been posting my meals. And I've posted my weight loss, my 50-pound weight loss picture, the before and the current picture. So I've already been posting content on there for you guys. Um, and I'm doing it partly to keep myself motivated, but as this podcast grows, I'll be posting clips on there. I'll be posting pictures of other people, of listeners who send in their weight loss. It's gonna be I really do think it's gonna be a great place to keep in touch there. And on Twitter, we're at Waistline Pod. Unfortunately, podcast was too long, so we're at Waistline Pod on Twitter. And then on Facebook, which I personally haven't used for a few years, but it's a great place for groups. As much as I'm not a fan of it as an individual, I think the groups are a valuable resource. Like I'm part of one on Facebook I just joined. It's called like Dad Bod Transformation, I think. Something to that effect. If you search weight loss dad bod, it'll pop up. And everyone's just posting their their struggles and their successes, and I want to create that for this podcast. So on Facebook, we're at Waistline Podcast, or just facebook.com /Waistline Podcast. And then I also have an email address. It's waistlinepodcast@gmail.com. And the one thing that I don't have ready yet, because I'm going through, I'm going to have, right now we're going to do it with voicemails. The one thing that I don't have that Loveline had was a call screener. And unfortunately with the internet, it's not any of you who are listening who would do this, but with the internet, if I was just taking live calls, we'd run into some hooligans. I'll put it that way. So right now we're going to start in a few episodes with voicemails. So if you have any right now that you want to leave, just send me the file. Just record it and send it to waistlinepodcast@gmail.com. But next week, because I have a Google Voice number, but I'm not happy with the sound quality from it. So I'm testing out a few other paid services. So by next week, I will have the phone number for you. But if you wanted to, if you wanted to start leaving them already, just email them to me at waistlinepodcast@gmail.com. And so those are all of the ways that you can get in touch and keep in touch with me. I also have my own personal social media. Everything is at Lee Syatt, LeeSyatt. And you're more than welcome, and I would love to have you on there. But the other ones are for the show and where I'm going to post everything from the show, because I really do believe. I paused because I was like, is this too cocky to say? But it's just what the reason why I'm starting this is I do believe that this show could be very helpful to people like me. So the show really isn't even about me. It's more about all of us, and because the reason why I got this idea, and then I'll tell you more about the show, is I got this idea because I was on this weight loss journey. If you're listening later on, I started it right at the end of 2020, at December 2nd or 3rd of 2020. And my brother and I, his name is Jordan Syatt, and will eventually be a guest on the show, hopefully more than once. And he is the only member of the Syatt family without a weight issue. He is actually a trainer, and I don't know how you would say it. He's not a nutritionist, but he's like a health expert, I would say, like that. Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. And he does some coaching and some training online, and he used to be Gary Vee's trainer. And my voice just cracked, and that's embarrassing. But he used to be Gary Vee's trainer, and I spoke to him because I was driving. I'm spending right now some time with my dad in Florida, but I was driving from the Boston area where my mom lives down here, and I called my brother and I asked him, out of his many, many clients, how many of them are already in shape or maybe have, under 30 pounds to lose. And if you're one of those people, I would love to have you on the show and as a listener. But what I wanted to know was, out of his clients, how many people were in that category versus someone like me who has 50, 100, or even more than that pounds to lose. And he said the vast majority was people who were in the first category, the already in shape or a little bit to lose. And the reason why I think that is I believe that when you're big like this, like I am, you really, it's not giving up, but you become I became complacent with it. Because, and this isn't a knock on my brother, and I told this to him over the phone, and it's in a perfect world, there really shouldn't be a need for nutritionists and trainers and all of that. There really isn't a secret when it comes to losing weight. There are different techniques to it, and eating plans. Everyone gets mad when you say diet. But for the most part, there really isn't a trick. You eat less calories than you burn, and you move a little bit. And honestly, the movement is great. It's it's not bad for you, but the majority of losing weight lies in what you eat. And that really is it. I mean, you don't really you shouldn't, and I shouldn't need someone like my brother to help me, but I do because of the mental aspect of it, because food's delicious, because I prefer to not move, and I have avoided eating healthy for my entire life. So I'm starting this as a place for people who understand where I'm coming from and where my guests are going to be coming from, and give them some place where we can help each other. And again, like I said at the beginning, I frankly don't care what your goal is. I mean, I would prefer it not be to gain weight, and I mean, unless you need to. But whatever your goal is your goal. If your goal is just to stop putting on weight, but you're not really in the mood or ready to lose weight yet, it's like when you're playing blackjack. It's better than losing, right? But I guess it's the opposite here. Anything is better than gaining. So I'm really, that is really the main part of it. I've actually already recorded an episode, which will come out, I think, in 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. Probably 3 weeks, with a gentleman named Shane Wally, who you might know from Instagram or TikTok, and he has been on a 14-month, over 100-pound weight loss journey, which is frankly amazing, and we really connected. I'm going to record here in the next couple days with my good friend Greg Benevent, and he was a comic that I met in Los Angeles who lost over 100 pounds, and so we're going to be talking with people like that, people who have already lost weight or are currently losing weight. I also want to hear from you, the listener, and either share your positive stories, but then also, I would love to talk to people who have, like me, and I'll talk about it a lot, times that I've failed in weight loss, which is way more than I've succeeded. But I think too many people, especially on social media, post the good, and I think that's one great thing that Shane does, is he doesn't only post the good. He's a positive person, but he lets you know when maybe things aren't going the way he hoped. So we're going to talk about that. I'm going to have doctors on. I'm going to have nutrition experts on, everything like that. But then the other thing that I really want to have you guys focus on is something that right now I'm calling it under the fat, but that might change. But the hope with that segment is, I just know that, and I'm as guilty as this as anybody, even as a big person, is that when you see someone big, or when I'll use myself, I don't want to put it on you. When I see someone big, a lot of times that's the first thing that you see about them, and it's the way that you categorize them in your head. That they're just like, when people see me, I a lot of times I'm Lee the fat guy, and it's a very isolating place to be put into, and it's also, I mean, life isn't fair, but it's an unfair thing to happen because there's a lot more to me than just being fat or big. I know some people don't like being called fat. I don't like it. But trust me, I've been called fat for my entire life. So at this point, if you're watching this on YouTube and calling me fat in the comments, it's really not going to affect me. It's you got to come up with some new stuff to get to me at this point. And there's plenty to go after. You could go after my hair, my height, my suave good looks. But there is a lot more to me, and I think there's a lot more to everybody, other than just their size. So one thing that I am absolutely going to do, and would love for you to send in your videos. Oh, and that's true. I guess on top of the voicemails, you could also send in videos, because there is a video version of this podcast. But I want to know, other than being big, what do you like? Are you a singer? Do you play video games? Do you knit? I don't know. There's more to you than just your size. And that's really what I want to highlight in that segment. So right now I'm calling it under the fat, but that could change. And so, like I said, this episode, what I really wanted to just do with you is sort of give you my resume, I guess, in a way. Just so you're like, who is this guy? How come he gets to tell me to lose weight? Because I've been there. That's why I feel like I'm what's the word? Qualified to host this podcast, because I know where you are right now. I've been there myself. Like I said, I always felt like the big guy in school, or the big kid in school. I wore husky-sized jeans. I don't know if anyone can relate to that. I don't know if they still have those or not. That might be fat shaming, I guess, now. But when I was growing up as a kid, there was husky-sized clothes, and they was basically like the big and tall store for kids. And so I've been there. Frankly, I don't know if in public, if I've taken my shirt off, maybe since elementary school. Like, maybe it's definitely under 10 times, and I'm 32. Like, I can't imagine a scenario, and that doesn't include with family. Family, even then, I don't always love it, but with family, like if it was just my mom, yeah, maybe I'll take my shirt off. But like having it have the sun touch my like torso has not happened in a very long time. And I have a few examples of it, and but it's almost not important. It was just I wasn't bullied to the point of some people, and I know that's justifying it, and it didn't make it feel any better as it was happening, but it's just always, when people get mad at you, it's the first thing they say, or the first thing they attack, or it's always a joke, and it's frankly it's sort of hacky at this point. It's like especially like if people are mad at somebody online, like they always say like you fat piece of whatever, or you fat. I'm trying not to swear on this, but I guess it really doesn't matter. I can say ass. Like they call people fat ass, and it's really, especially as a comedian, it's it's kind of embarrassing for them, to be honest, because there's so many funnier ways to make fun of somebody, and it's just it's low hanging fruit. It's right there, and it's easy to attack, um, and it's frustrating. It gets old. It gets old. Having people who you thought were your friends say that about you, and even if they are your friends, and even if they apologize later, or maybe their family, that's where I got pretty lucky. I mean, of course, I think it's happened. In anger, they'll say something, but for the most part, my family has always been supportive of me. Um, and even if they are your friends and they apologize later, it still stings, and it's I just even if the bullying didn't come from me being big outwardly, I kind of felt like it did. Because especially when you feel like you're the biggest kid in the class or the group, um, you don't want to go to the beach, and it's just a very isolating, alone experience. Um, and that's not good as a kid, and I think that's partially why I've sort of become used to it in a way. I had a friend who would always get on my back about like you gotta leave the house, you gotta go do stuff, and I'm I think I was an introvert from birth, to be honest, but I definitely think being unhappy with my size definitely played a role in having trouble talking to girls. I've had multiple girls that I dated say like, "Oh, looks aren't that important to me," and it's like, and they say it, and I think when they're saying it, they feel like it's a positive thing. Like, I like you, I love you for who you are, and I guess on paper, that is partially what it is. I know I'm drinking a Diet Coke. I'm not a perfect person. It's not a regular Coke. Gabriel Iglesias has a joke that says, uh, "I drink Diet Coke so I can eat regular cake," and that kills me. Um, but I mean, getting back to the dating thing, no one wants. I mean, obviously, I want the person who I date to love me for who I am, but no one wants to hear, "Oh, I don't care that you're an ugly piece of crap." Like that's just how when I heard, "Oh, looks aren't that important to me," that's how it got interpreted, how I interpreted it. And um so because of that, because of all of that, I tend to retreat and either A, spend time with a couple people who I trust and know, or B, more often than not, spend the time alone. And that I feel like I enjoy it, but maybe I'd be happier in a different world if none of this had happened. Maybe I would be a more outgoing social person. Who knows? But I mean, like I said, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. I mean, I was chubby my whole life. I always noticed, even without people saying anything, like when the other boys would take their shirts off, that their stomach didn't look like my stomach. That like even before people were working out, like they just had flat, like, it's weird saying like a 10-year-old has a muscular. It sounds weird to say, but they just had, were in shape. And I always felt bigger then. And looking back on it, I was probably just chubby. Um, sorry, I'm getting a little dry. But you don't know that in the moment. You don't know that you're really not as big or you're going to get much bigger. Um, but I'm short. I'm 5'4", and I remember freshman year of high school, I was 160, which is honestly probably around where I should be. That's not even that bad, but I probably wasn't 5'4" then. Um, and I remember going to the doctor, to my pediatrician growing up, and it was like I'd gained like I think it was like 20 pounds a year, which is too much, especially when I'm not really growing that height wise. I'm really not getting that tall, and it was just like there was just always reminders of it. There was always reminders, and I know being big doesn't mean you're not going to be good at sports, but I wasn't good at sports, and I just remember, getting bigger and bigger, and I think by the time I was a senior, I was probably somewhere around 215, 220, I would guess. Like I remember that I started getting big as a junior or a sophomore. I think probably a junior. Whenever I got my license and got a car, because as soon as even before I had a license, I had a part-time job, and when I got my car, I could go out and eat whatever I wanted to eat. And like I said, food was always big for me. And it was even big. I remember vividly, because I never really felt like I belonged. And so like I remember vividly, I was at a day camp, and I asked one of my favorite counselors what he was going to do after camp. And I remember that he said he was going to get some chips and a soda and watch TV. And he probably was in like middle school or high school, maybe college, but he was younger. And I remember going home, and I had like these colored plastic bowls. I was a kid, and I remember doing that because I thought that's what you did when you were cool, I guess, at least in my eyes. And then I remember, I was friendly. We weren't best friends, but I was friendly with this really tall kid in high school. And I remember we were at lunch one day, and he had 2 sandwiches. I was like, I gotta have 2 sandwiches. For no reason. It's just always, I've always just wanted really to fit in. And I guess being big is just a visually, like I was saying earlier, you stand out as not fitting in. And there are bigger people who can be very social, and they're goofy or they're outgoing, and it doesn't seem to affect them as much. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But I take things personally. And I just know myself that I've just been unhappy with it. And the problem with overeating is your tolerance goes up. Like it's amazing what you remember. I remember, I think I was probably in like 4th or 5th grade, and like in my elementary school, like they would put older kids in charge of lunch tables. I just vividly, and I didn't grow up super rich, but I was not poor. I always had lunch money hour. My mom would pack me lunch occasionally, but I remember taking someone's tray back to throw away. And I remember they had extra chicken nuggets on their plate, on their tray. And I can feel it. I can still feel it. I shoved them in my mouth, and like it hurt to swallow, because I was trying to do it so no one could see. And I remember like that I barely was able to chew it, and I don't know. I wish I knew why. I wish I knew why I did that, but it's just, I have a very messed up relationship with food. I'll put it that way. And then but I was able to keep it relatively in check. I probably could have lost. Like I said, I always felt like the biggest person. I never liked the way I looked in pictures or the way the clothes fit. But I probably, if I had lost, like, it was definitely under 100 pounds, like 60, 70 pounds, I would have been normal, I guess, for the lack of a better word. And then I moved to Los Angeles when I graduated college. I went to college in Boston. I went to Emerson College, and I lived in Boston, and there's a lot of walking in that city. And just, frankly, because of that, I was able to sort of maintain just a regular chubby life. And then I moved to LA, and I worked at the beginning I worked some days, and even then you're working from 10 to 7, but you have to leave the house by like 8 or 8:30 in Los Angeles because of traffic, and then you're not getting home till 8 or 8:30. And I remember just being so tired that I went to fast food just because I didn't even want to get out of the car at a restaurant to pick up dinner. I just wanted to get home so quickly that I would do that. And there were months at a time where I would just eat fast food. And it's just not a healthy way to live and eat. And I remember once I was wearing a sweater to work, and my boss took me out of the office, and we walked around. She said, "You need to get some bigger shirts because it doesn't look good when you raise your arm and your belly sticks out at the bottom." And I would just remember being so embarrassed, but it's not because what I was saying earlier, everyone when they're big knows they're big. It's not a surprise to us, but it's like it still doesn't feel good having it brought up, even though she did it very nicely. I've had a lot of people be very mean about it. She was not one of them. She was very as nice as you could have been, I guess. And I mean, it was true. But now I do notice it when other big people, when their stomach's hanging out. I want to, but it's not my place to tell anybody how to live their life. But I just got bigger and bigger, and I remember I would put napkins in the I would have to buckle my jeans around my hips and do like the jump up thing to get them up there. And then I would put napkins, like I would tuck them into my jeans and then over where the button was, because they would just dig into my skin so much it would hurt. And just so many, I mean, I probably have sleep apnea, which I'm going to get checked out on here. But I'm skipping ahead a little bit because the doctor is a whole topic within itself. But I've tried, when I'm talking about this, the one thing I really haven't discussed yet is trying to lose weight. And I have tried to lose weight. Like, for example, there's another, I love comedy, and there's another comedian named Robert Kelly. He goes by Bobby, and him and I are very similar in looks and experiences, because he has a line in one of his specials that he just says he's on his like 6th fat, is the way he puts it. And that just really hit home for me, because I've lost weight before. I've lost a good amount of weight before, and it always comes back plus 15. And that's something that I absolutely want to talk with a mental health professional about on the show. And I would love to know what it is that it's that convinces our brain, or my brain, at a certain point to get back on track, because it's very easy to slowly get off track. And it's, sorry about that. Someone's doing something with rocks or something. But what is going on? I hope you guys can still hear me. I'm going to just power through this. But it's very easy to get off track, but it's because it happens slowly. Like, I've been on so many diets, and you lose 50, 60, 70 pounds, and then you hit a plateau, or you just get sick of the food, and you just slowly start eating the way you were eating before. And it doesn't happen all at once, but I just slowly start letting myself get back to old habits, and the weight comes back on, and you can see it coming back on. Your clothes start not fitting anymore, but there's something about that getting it back plus 15 that is just, it's so true. That's when you start to lose the weight again. And so I've tried everything. I tried keto before it was keto, when it was called Atkins. I tried that. I've tried Nutrisystem. I've tried all of the delivery services like Freshly. I've tried, let me see, I actually have notes for this. Blue Apron. I've tried Trifecta. I did the Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead juice fast. For that one, I lost like 70 pounds in like 25 days. And luckily I stopped because my my legs started tingling. And I actually did have a friend who I would love to get on here. A comic named Dean Del Rey, who was chubby. He was never as big as I am, but he was bigger, and then did a juice fast and actually got diabetes from it because of the juice that had so much sugar in it. But I did that and gained it back. I tried in high school. I ordered Lipozene over the phone, which was a pill, and because I was just so sick of being big, and I just remember that I only took it a few times because it made me feel terrible. Like, I think it was probably like just speed or so. It wasn't good. But I tried it. I tried that. I think this is sort of a joke, but it's true. I think I went to the world's last in-person Weight Watchers meeting, because I went right before the lockdown started, and then like literally like a day or two later, the world shut down. And it just, frankly, it worked until it didn't. It worked until I gave up, which really isn't the diet's fault, but again, to tease next week, and next week we're gonna talk about what I'm doing now, and if we have any calls, maybe I'll take a couple of the messages, and then just a quick note on the calls. What I think I am gonna do here is I will take some messages and play them, but I also, since I am a one-man band for all of this, if you leave a message or an email and we connect, and I can tell that you're a real person and you're not going to just be a troll. Not that I think you're going to be a troll, but I just want to avoid that, because the reason why I'm so cautious is I have done call-in shows before, and I picked up the phone once, and this person just started saying the N-word like 1,000 times until like, and I was in shock, and then I hung up, and I really don't want that to happen here. So I'm saying that to say, if you send me a message or an email or on Instagram, and you have a story, and you would like to be on the show, we'll go back and forth, and then what I'll do is I'll record it on Zoom, and I'll include it in a full episode, and we can actually go back and forth and take listener questions on certain topics. But I'm gonna meet you that way first, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. But the reason why I'm hopeful that this will hopefully be my last time, and it's not going to be an end. That is also one of the things that I really struggle with weight loss is I'm never going to be able to just go back to the way I was eating. I can maybe go back and occasionally have fast food where I'm not having really any at all right now. I've been to Chick-fil-A once and I got a grilled chicken sandwich. Um, and I'm not having any candy was my killer. That the last couple times I've gotten big because I had a rule for myself. I'm big with that for some reason with rules. And I would get one chocolate thing and one gummy thing. And that, I mean, candy, that's how Dean ended up. He got rid of his diabetes and lost a bunch of weight by I don't know if anyone can completely cut out sugar, but he went as low sugar as anyone can possibly go. And he lost a ton of weight because sugar is just has so many calories. And there's other and that's another thing that I want to talk about is with people who have lost weight or are losing weight. Like what do you like as a treat? Like one of my favorite treats right now is I always forget the brand name. Outshine. Outshine has no sugar added popsicles that are 25 calories each, and they're delicious. And then caramel rice cakes are amazing. And those I think are only 45 or 50 calories a pop. And so I want to know your tricks for still getting to enjoy food while you're losing weight. But the path that I'm on now, I'm hopeful that it will work and stick this time, because I could see myself continuing with this, A, until I lose the weight I want to lose, but B, for the most part, I could see myself eating like this forever. Obviously, there will be times when I have to, and I don't have to, I guess, but there will be like lunch meetings with clients or with family or friends or a girl eventually, hopefully, and where I'll feel pressure to eat or I should eat. And one of the things that I've been talking about with my brother is that intermittent fasting is great, but it's really the being in the word is a caloric deficit. That's the most important part of it. And the fact that I'm only eating once a day is mainly just so I can put all my calories in one pack. And less about I'm sure fasting can help in some ways. He wasn't completely against that, but the majority of it is just to keep your calories in one spot. And so if I, at some point, do have to have a lunch meeting or go on a date, or I have kids and we're going out to lunch, that I just modify and I have a salad and then save the most of my calories for dinner. Or other ways. I feel like the journey I'm on now is one that is actually sustainable and possible for me to continue on. And I like I said, I'm down just over 51 pounds. I weigh in once a week on Tuesdays, so that's why I'm going to release this on Tuesdays, so I can update you on my weight loss every week. And that the last part of this podcast is going to be my journey. Because you're going to hold me accountable. And I know that I have to work out and eat right, because I don't want to come in and having gained weight and because one of the things about being heavy is it turned me into the kind of a liar in certain ways. And they're white lies. It's what I'm eating. It doesn't hurt anybody but myself to say, what do you have for dinner? Chicken breast. But then I'm gaining weight and I really had a burger. But I don't want to do that. I want to get healthier for myself. I want to um, get to a healthier weight and then hopefully meet a girl. A woman, I guess, would be better. Girls are probably too young. Sorry, let me just take a little sip of a drink here. But that's really it. Is just we're gonna be following your journey and we're gonna be following mine. And I struggle with a lot of people when I posted my 50-pound weight loss. A lot of people use the word that I'm not very comfortable with, and they said inspiring. And this sounds like a humble brag, but it trust me, it's not. I don't feel very inspiring being the size that I am and the life that I'm living. I've had some ups and downs, and right now I'm coming out of a down, I would say. There's a lot of people who have it worse off than me, but this is not where I had imagined my life being at 32. So it makes when people say, "Oh, you're an inspiration." That's not how I see it. But if I can make it seem more attainable, what I would hope is, I don't want to be an inspiration. I want to be someone that you can look at and be like, if that guy can do it, I can definitely do it because I'm way better than him. Not to knock myself. I do lean towards self-deprecation. Sorry, but it's true. I just, that's the way I look at it, is that if I can do it, you can absolutely do it 100%. And that's how I want to leave it, is that, trust me, I've been on this path before. I've lost 50 pounds probably 6 times. 7 times. Who knows how many times at this point. But I want to thank you for listening, and get ready. This was sort of like a first date, and I know I probably told you way more than you should have known on a first date. But I really hope that you listening to this can see where I'm coming from and see why I feel like I'm the right person to host this podcast. And if you have a friend or a loved one who is struggling with what I struggle with, please show them this podcast. Please, I hate when people say follow me, but just check out the social media channels. Like I said, Waistline Podcast on Instagram and Facebook, and then Waistline Pod on Twitter. I'm going to be on there a lot. Please email the show at waistlinepodcast@gmail.com. And so next week we're going to talk about how I am losing weight currently, and sort of what I'm doing, and that might be a shorter episode. And then we're going to have my buddy Greg on, and then very excited to let you hear the episode with Shane Wally that's coming up here probably in 2 or 3 episodes. And then we're going to be off and running. That's really my plan so far. That really covers about the first month of the show. I'm going to release every Tuesday. So when you wake up Tuesday morning, you'll have the episode. And I guess maybe I'll have to adjust the day I weigh in, because I usually weigh in late in the day on Tuesday. But I do want to release this on Tuesday, so maybe I'll adjust and weigh in on Mondays from now on, just so I can give you a real up to date following of where I am weight loss wise. But thank you guys for listening, and don't forget there is a YouTube Waistline Podcast page, and I'm just so excited to be on this journey with you. I'm excited for myself to lose the weight. I'm excited for you listening to get healthier, and I'm just happy, and I really hope that this does as much for you as it's doing for me, and that we get there together, and that in a year, on the, I guess it'll be 52nd episode, will be a year of doing it every week, that we can look back and see that we're better off than when we started now. Whether it's weight-wise, mentally, emotionally, that's what I want. I want to constantly be getting better at whatever rate is good for you. There's no race, which is something I need to teach myself because I'm very impatient. But I really do think that we're gonna become very close with this podcast, and I can't wait to hear from you. Again, my name is Syatt, and thank you for listening to the first ever episode of the Waistline Podcast. Thank you guys. I'll see you next week. Bye.